Well, thank you very much. I want to welcome members, staff, guests to the last meeting of the calendar year of the Dormitory Authority. It's a pleasure to have everybody here. The visibility is limited, but
Don't tell us.
I was taken with, it's tough being on that side of the table. I'm sorry. I was waiting for John to make that comment.
I was just going to welcome you back.
Yes, I was.
It's just glad you're here. We missed you last month.
Thank you.
And
I understand you did a stellar job, though.
That's your material. It's the most important thing. You're back here leading it again and feeling better.
I am feeling better. Thank you. I was going to, first of all, say that the light snow this morning was a great way to start my holiday. I mean, just a good mood.
I would note that John got us out at about, 11?
Yeah, yes, he did, earlier than that.
But we're not going to, we're not out at 11
No,
today.
I know.
I want to take a second and thank all of you, staff, some of the outside counsel even, the members for all of the email notes. I guess they're not called email notes. The emails and other acknowledgments of my my illness, which has, I have gotten better. I'm not all the way to bright, but it was very nice to get the little notes that I got from all of you. It's the first DASNY meeting I've missed ever, and I was a bit put out by that, actually, but of course you all were in great hands. Thank you, John, for filling in. Since my last meeting, Paul Ellis has resigned. Paul was a terrific board member, a guy on whom I depended enormously, clear thinker, and the sort of guy about whom you worry a little when he raised his hand, because you just didn't know what he was going to say, but you knew it was going to be significant. His schedule has kept him from being on this board. I regret that, and we await anxiously, actually, the decision of the Assembly in replacing Paul on the board. Today is the last board meeting for our two fellows, Maria and Alex. I was thinking about this a little bit last night, and I thought I'll do something that is a bit unusual. In the early 60s, an icon of R&B music did a song, the first words of which were, I don't need nobody to give me nothing. Just open up the door and I'll get it myself. They've been words to live by for me, and I cannot tell you how many times I've used that in speeches and presentations, whatever. But Alex and Maria proved that point. Our selection process was good. They came in here and they hit the ground running. We gave them nothing except training. What they gave us was superior performance. And I want that in the record. I want the two of you to know that we very much appreciate the patina that you've given us in this fellowship program. And we wish you the best of luck as you go off to your respective financial services firms. Don't hesitate to call if there's anything we can do. Start with Ruben, though. He's more likely to be able to do something than I am. Which gets us to Ruben and the beginning of the meeting. You all have all met him. He has a terrific history in the bond business. He knows the business as well as anybody might. We are very fortunate that the governor has seen fit to nominate him into this position. I guess the process is nomination, then appointment, which is what we may well do here today, and then confirmation by the New York State Senate. So Ruben is at the table right now, inappropriately. But it's okay, because I'm about to try to make it appropriate. You've all had a chance to look at his bona fides. You know who he is. He's a Southerner, which gives me great comfort, those of us who care deeply about the South. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. There is a resolution in your books. You've had a chance to take a look at it. Are there any questions about it?
Which SEC school are your favorite?
What's that?
What's the SEC school that's his favorite? I need to know.
That's an excellent question. I grew up a Longhorn going to Texas.
Oh, okay.
However, my daughter got a full scholarship to Texas A&M.
Oh,
So that's not my
friends there.
favorite SEC
That's a
school,
great
no matter
school.
what. What else happened? That's right, that's right.
Big stadium.
All right.
Place.
To complete then the appointment process, if there are no questions about the resolution, may I have a motion, please, to approve it? John Johnson, thank you very much. Jerry, thank you very much for the second. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. The resolution passes unanimously. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Did you want to say anything? You don't have to say a word. But,
I will say some words in my president's report, how about that?
okay, fair enough, fair enough. Then we'll move right into the meeting itself. You've had a chance to review the minutes of the November 13 board meeting. Are there any questions about those minutes? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve? Joan, thank you very much. Is there a second? Beryl, thank you for the second. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved unanimously. At this point, I would normally go to the Finance Committee report and ask Chairman Romsky to give that report. Unfortunately, he was unavoidably delayed yesterday, and so I had the opportunity to appoint myself as acting chair of the Finance Committee, which means I now give the finance report, which I didn't see coming until late yesterday.
I did listen in though, Al.
Yeah, you were on the phone. You were on the phone and corrected me a couple of times. Yesterday, the Finance Committee reviewed four proposed financings. The first was NYU Langone Hospitals Obligated Group. The second was the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. The third was New York University. And the fourth was the Onondaga Cortland Madison BOCES proposed financing. After a lot of discussion and a lot of work by staff to do presentations, the committee voted in each instance to recommend to this board that these proposed financings be approved. Are there any questions? Hearing none, then I will turn the meeting over to our acting executive director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will begin with our first financing document resolution. If you look behind tab 4, it's the Fordham University transaction summary update. We have our co-bond counsels, Chris Reitzel and Jay Lee, here today with us, and Dave Ostrander will be presenting for staff. Dave?
Morning. This is a financing that was brought to the board at the November meeting for resolution to proceed for a not to exceed of $170 million. Since that time, we received the TEFRA approval, along with the governor's approval and the PACB approval on November 20th. The seeker filing was done earlier this week. And other than that, there's no change in the purpose or the security that was reported to the board. So, Mr. Chairman, any questions? Chris and Jay.
Thank you very much, Chris or Jay.
Before you for consideration is the adoption of a series resolution authorizing $170 million, the authority's Fordham University Revenue Bonds Series 2020. The 2020 bonds are proposed to be issued under the authority's Fordham University Revenue Bond Resolution that was adopted in 2008. The series resolution before you delegates to various officers of the authority the power to make the determinations described in our letter and to do all things necessary or convenient in connection with the issuance of the bonds. The proceeds are expected to be used to finance the renovation, improvement, and expansion of the university's Rose Hill campus. The bonds are expected to be issued as tax-exempt fixed-rate bonds, but the series resolution does not limit the discretion of the authority's officers to determine to issue the bonds in other configurations than are currently contemplated. The bonds are proposed to be sold in a negotiated sale to Morgan Stanley. and the university is expected to execute an agreement to provide continuing disclosure to facilitate the underwriter's securities law obligations.
The general resolution provides for the issuance from time to time of multiple series of bonds, each series separately secured from each other except as otherwise provided in the applicable series resolution. The bonds are special obligations of authority paid for solely on revenues, which consist of paid by the university under the loan agreement. Payment of the bonds is secured by a pledge of assignment made by the general resolution of revenues, and the monies and investments held in the funds and the account established by the general resolution and the series resolution. The authority of the university will execute loan connection with issues of the bonds, which will require the university to make timely payments on the 2020 bonds. Consistent with the guidelines, the loan agreement will contain appropriate standard documents provisions, may include additional security provisions based on market conditions and practices. The university's obligation to make payments under the loan agreement will be a general obligation and is expected to be unsecured.
Jay, thank you. Chris, thank you. Any questions for Jay, Chris, or David? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the resolution? Darrell, thank you. Second. Tracy, thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Our next item is behind tab 5. It is a single approval financing for NYU Langone Hospital's obligated group. The bond counsel, co-bond counsel Lane Heitzler and Patrick McGlashan are here, and Matthew Bergen is doing it for us. Matt?
Thank you and good morning, everyone. The staff report provided to the members presents a 34-year bond issue in an amount not to exceed $550 million on behalf of the NYU Langone Hospital's obligated group. The financing that you're considering this morning will finance 3 new money projects as follows: construction of an ambulatory care center in the Cobble Hill neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York, the construction of a 2-story addition and renovations to various patient care areas at the NYU Winthrop Hospital in Mineola, New York, and the renovation and fit out of an existing structure to house faculty practice physician offices in Garden City, New York. As this is an obligated group structure, obligations issued under the NYU Langone Hospital's MTI are expected to be secured by both a security interest in NYU Langone Hospital's gross receipts and mortgages on certain NYU Langone Hospital's facilities. The expected ratings are A3 and A-. Regarding NYU Langone Hospitals, this is an institution that has strong revenue growth and profitability. Between the period 2015 and 2019, total operating revenues have gone from nearly $2.5 billion to over $6 billion as the institution continues to strengthen its volume in key service areas, and with the key addition of the 444-bed NYU Langone Hospital Brooklyn in 2016 and the 591-bed NYU Winthrop Hospital in 2019. With these additions, NYU Langone Hospitals now has over 2,100 patient beds and recorded over 100,000 discharges in 2019. Over the last 5 years, NYU Langone Hospitals has recorded average annual operating gains of approximately $313 million for an average operating margin of nearly 6.5%. In 2019, the institution's days cash on hand increased to nearly 88 days, the cushion ratio increased to 8.58, and the debt service coverage ratio increased to 6.77. Regarding this financing, the institution is proposing to structure the new money to amortize between the years 2048 and 2053 to take advantage of the economic life of the project assets, as well as to provide the institution with a more level aggregate debt service profile. In addition, this will take advantage of the flat yield curve and the historically low interest rate environment that we are currently in. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to turn the presentation now over to Alice.
Good morning. I'm Allison Radke. I'm from Orrick, Harrington, and Sutcliffe, and I'm here with Patrick McGlashan, and we're serving as co-bond counsel on the NYU Langone transaction. I'm going to give a brief overview of the transaction and the general resolution, and then turn it over to Patrick to cover the series resolution, and then I'll finish up with a discussion on the MTI. So today you have before you for your consideration a general resolution, the Series 20 the A resolution, and a loan agreement. The board is being asked to adopt a new general resolution and to approve a new form of loan agreement to take into account the modernization of certain provisions and new policy changes at DASNY. For example, we're trying to streamline some of the notice provisions and consent rights. We're deleting, in some cases, notice requirements for the paper and instead putting them on EMMA. We're changing possible P&I payment provisions. We're assigning the trust estate to the trustee at the outset, and we're modernizing the requisition process. In addition, we're also adopting new documents because NYU Langone has changed its name. All of its previous documents were NYU Hospital Center, and now it's NYU Langone Obligated Group, and they'd like new documents to reflect that. You are being asked to approve today the issuance of the Series 2020A bonds in an amount not to exceed $550 million. The proceeds of these bonds will be loaned to NYU Langone Hospitals as borrower and as obligated group representative. I want to point out that they're the only member of the obligated group at this point, so it's really just going to NYU Langone. The bonds are proposed to be sold through a negotiated sale to a syndicate of underwriters led by Goldman Sachs. They're expected to be issued as tax-exempt fixed-rate bonds and used to finance a project which consists of the acquisition, construction, renovation, and equipping of certain facilities of NYU Langone in Long Island and in Brooklyn, as well as to pay certain costs of issuance. The bonds will be special obligations of the authority, payable slowly from the revenues, which consist of certain payments to be made under the loan agreement and payments made under an obligation issued under the MTI. The obligation will be secured by the gross receipts pledge of all members pursuant to the MTI, as well as certain mortgages granted by NYULH to the master trustee. Turning to the general resolution is an open resolution, and it allows for the issuance from time to time of multiple series of bonds, each series secured separately by the applicable revenues and certain funds and accounts established for that applicable series of bonds, and by any other security pledged to the payment of such security of bonds. The general resolution sets forth the general terms for each series, the conditions for issuance, the security, the funds and accounts, the flow of monies, the event of defaults and remedies, and the provisions regarding amendments and provisions regarding the trustee's fiduciary duties and covenants of the authority and defeasance provisions. The Series 2020A bonds will be the first series of bonds to be issued under this new general resolution. I'll turn it to Patrick now to talk about the series resolution.
Thank you, Allison. Good morning.
Morning.
As described earlier, the general resolution and the Series 2020A resolution would authorize the issuance of the Series 2020A bonds. The resolutions would also delegate to various officers of the authority the power to make certain determinations for the bonds, including the principal amount of the Series 2020A bonds to be issued, provided that the aggregate principal amount does not exceed the $550 million cap discussed earlier. The date or dates on which any of the Series 2028 bonds will pay interest and or principal and mature, provided that no Series 2028 bond shall mature later than 34 years from the July 1st next succeeding the date of initial issuance. The rate or rates at which the Series 2028 bonds will bear interest, provided that the true interest cost for the Series 2028 bonds will not exceed 7.5% per annum if issued as tax-exempt bonds and 10% per annum if issued as taxable bonds. The purchase price of the Series 2028 bonds, provided that it may not be less than 95% of the principal amount of the Series 2028 bonds sold. The redemption terms and the redemption prices, whether the Series 2028 bonds will be issued as tax-exempt bonds or federally taxable bonds in one or more subseries at the same or at different times. The form of the Series 2028 bonds and the debt service requirement, the debt service reserve fund requirement, if funding a debt service requirement is determined to be required at the time of pricing. The Series 2020A resolution further authorizes various officers to prepare and deliver a preliminary official statement, and to prepare and execute and deliver a final official statement in connection with the offering of the bonds, to execute and deliver a bond purchase agreement and the loan agreement, and the Series 2020A resolution authorizes various officers of the authority to execute all other documents and do all things necessary or convenient in connection with the sale and issuance of the bonds. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Alice.
As part of DASNY's security package, NYU Langone will issue the Series 2020 obligation pursuant to the MTI in order to secure the bonds. Under the MTI, the members are jointly and severally obligated to pay all obligations issued thereunder, and each obligation will be secured by a pledge of gross receipts of the members of the obligated group, which constitutes all revenue derived from healthcare and health-related services, and by mortgages given on certain real property that constitute the core healthcare facilities of the obligated group. It is currently expected that a new mortgage will be granted to secure the Series 2028 obligation. The MTI permits members to leave the obligated group and new institutions to join the obligated group as long as certain tests and conditions are met. The MTI permits members of the obligated group to incur additional indebtedness and secure that indebtedness on a parity with the bonds within certain prescribed limitations. In connection with the financing, NYULH plans to put into place certain springing amendments to the MTI. These amendments allow for certain changes to the documents to conform to generally accepted accounting principles, to delete the requirement that new members of the obligated group be required to grant mortgages on their healthcare facilities, and to permit electronic notices. These amendments will take effect when NYULH obtains the required consents from the outstanding holders. And with that, it concludes our prepared remarks, and please let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you all very much. Are there questions? Yes, sir. Please.
I'm not aware of any, and I believe that actually is community support for these projects, but we're not aware of any material community opposition to any.
I'm not aware of any community opposition.
I thought your answer was going to be longer, Matt, so I took a piece of this corn muffin.
I'd like to go out with a secret negative declarations on the table.
It was a nice leading question. I'm trying to guess or no.
I was gonna. Let me say quickly that Tracy Raleigh's comments yesterday in the Finance Committee meeting were very important to our understanding of the nature of the transaction. I'll ask Tracy if she wants to. She certainly don't have to talk about it.
No corn muffin.
No corn muffin, right on.
I'd be happy to. So you'll see in the report, the department did provide our recommendation in support of this financing. And to answer the question, the two of the three projects, the Brooklyn Cobble Hill project, as well as the Winthrop New Life Center project, have been contingently approved from the department's perspective. So there were certificate of need requirements, and they were contingently approved. We also took a look at we talked about this yesterday, the structure of the debt, because this is layering on this issuance on existing debt, and it does include a significant deferral of principal, a 48-year deferral of principal. Consistent with what the department has done with other large systems who have investment grade credit rating, we allow the flexibility of the system to structure the debt in that way, even though historically we've looked at the comparison of the interest cost if you were to do the debt on a level basis. But we're allowing the facilities to use their economic asset life and to structure the debt in a way that allows them to maintain cash flow and good credit with the rating agencies, and layer that debt on top of existing debt to achieve overall level debt service. So we spent some time with the department, with DASNY folks, with Matt, and looked at the structure, and it is consistent with what we've done with Montefiore, with the Catholic Health System of Western New York that came before the board as well. So.
Tracy, thank you. Are there
Mr. Chair,
questions?
if I might
Sure.
highlight,
Of course.
I guess Matt, maybe you're the person to answer this question. The deferral of principal, can you just spell out kind of when the maturities are coming and how much each maturity is for the record?
Yes, in 2048 and 2049, it's approximately $140 million. And then in 2052 and 2053, it's approximately $105 million each in each of those years.
Okay. I think it's important, given how much deferral we have, to
Get it on the
get
record.
record. Yes.
I agree.
Thank you,
Thank you. Are there other questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the proposed transaction? Tracy, thank you very much. Is there a second? Thank you very much, Joe. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion passes unanimously. I want to thank the three of you for your presentations. Thank you for being here.
With that, we'll move on to 3 resolutions to proceed with new financings. The first is behind tab 6. It's the Jewish Theology Seminary of America, and Gerard Klauser is going to present this. Gerard?
Pardon me.
Happy holidays to you all.
Yeah, you too. Good morning. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the staff report provided to the members for the resolution to proceed presents a 31-year bond issue and amount not to exceed $41 million on behalf of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Located in Manhattan, the Jewish Theological Seminary of America is an accredited member of the Middle States Association of Colleges and Schools and is chartered by the Regents of the State of New York. The seminary was founded in 1886 and grants undergraduate, graduate, and professional degrees through its 5 schools. These include the Albert A. List College of Jewish Studies, the H.L. Miller Cantorial School, and the College of Jewish Music, the William Davidson Graduate School of Jewish Education, the Rabbinical School, and the Gershon Kext Graduate School. The seminary also offers degree programs affiliated with Columbia University and Barnard College. The seminary is exempt from federal income tax under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. The seminary constructed a major modernization project for its campus, including the demolition of the old library, improvements and upgrades to existing buildings, and the construction of a new 85,800 square foot building comprising of a library and a student dormitory. This transaction will involve the reimbursement of approximately $39 million for prior capital expenditures spent building the project. Similar to the initial private placement with TD Bank, the proposed bond issue is anticipated to be a tax-exempt private placement with TD Bank. As such, the bonds will not be rated, and the institution does not have an underlying rating. The expected security is anticipated to be the mortgage on certain property acceptable to the bank, pledge of gross receipts acceptable to the bank. When looking at total revenue and total expenses over time, the operations have been consistent. Seminary has a large percentage of its revenue comprised of private gifts and grants and assets released for restrictions, which are donor restricted. In 2016, the seminary completed the sale of 2 dormitories, a portion of a real estate lot, and the unused air rights on its campus. At that time, it was determined that a portion of the project would be paid with equity from that sale. The seminary has had a change in leadership subsequent to the prior transaction and has decided to seek reimbursement for prior expenditures as opposed to funding the project with equity. Accordingly, staff recommends the board adopt the resolution to proceed with a 31-year bond issue in an amount not to exceed $41 million on behalf of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Gerard. Are there questions for Gerard? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve it? Jerry, thank you. Is there a second? Carol, thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. As there are none opposed, motion carries unanimously. Gerard, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next resolution to proceed is behind tab 8. It's the NYU, and Dave Ospander will present this to us.
Welcome back.
The board's being asked to adopt a resolution to proceed for one or more series of tax-exempt and/or taxable fixed and/or variable rate bonds in an amount not to exceed $750 million, with maturities not to exceed 40 years on behalf of New York University. Proceeds from this issuance will be used to refund all or a portion of the university's Series 2012 A and B bonds, 2013 A bonds, and Series 2015 A bonds, all of which were issued by DASNY. The Series 2012 bonds have a current par amount outstanding of $220.6 million and are callable in July of 2022. And the 2013 A bonds have an amount outstanding of $113.8 million, and those are callable on July 1st of 2023. So with call dates out in 2022 and 2023, it's anticipated that the university will issue taxable bonds to refund 2012 and 2013 A bonds. As for the 2015 A bonds, 63.9 million of that from that series are callable in July 1st of 2020. So for the 2015 refunding, it's anticipated that the university will issue tax-exempt bonds that will price in January and close in April. So there will be a forward delivery of tax-exempt bonds for the 2015 refunding. Assuming current market conditions, a total net present value savings in the range of 42.1 million, or 10.6% of the refunded bonds is expected from the refunding. And that assumes a taxable refunding for the 2012s and the 2013s and a tax exempt for the 2015s. Proceeds from the proposed issuance may also be used to finance, refinance, or reimburse the university for costs associated with projects that are already in progress. All of these projects have been previously financed by DASNY, and they include the construction of a mixed-use building at 181 Mercer Street, which would include an athletic facility, classrooms, performing arts space, and student and faculty housing. Improvements to the university's Brooklyn campus at 370 J Street and the Tannen School of Engineering, as well as various renovation, repair, and replacement projects located at various facilities throughout the NYU system. As for the ratings, the university maintains a AA2 and AA- ratings from Moody's and S&P respectively, both with a stable outlook. So as with previous NYU transactions, this will be the loan agreement will be a general unsecured obligation of the university. I'll just touch on a few financial highlights of the university. Positive demand and enrollment trends have continued in recent years. For fall of 2018, the university received 71,834 applications for first-time, full-time freshmen, which is the 11th year in a row of record applications. NYU's acceptance rate for undergraduate enrollment reached a 5-year low of 20%. Fall of 18, while its matriculation rate reached a 5-year high of 43%. And as a result, total headcount enrollment reached 51,847 for fall of 18, which is a 5.2% increase over 5 years. The university's overall revenue mix is diverse. For fiscal year 2018, only 30% of the university's total operating revenues came from net tuition and fees. And lastly, when looking at the balance sheet, total net assets have increased by $902.4 million over the past 5 years, reaching $6.15 billion as of fiscal year in 2018. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, David. Are there questions for David on this transaction?
I have one.
Please.
There's no new unidentified projects being funded by this, right? Everything we've already
financed.
Repairing or renovating, nothing new.
Correct.
Thank you, Jerry. Are there other questions? If not, then may I have a motion, please, to approve the transaction? Thank you, Beryl. Is there a second? Thank you very much, Tracy. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Motion carries unanimously, I think. Yes. All right.
Mr. Chairman, our final resolution for new financings is behind tab 9. Onondaga, Cortland, Madison, Boces, and Steve Kosher will present first from staff. Steve?
Morning, Steve.
Morning.
Staff is requesting the board to adopt a resolution to proceed for a financing of an amount not to exceed $12,850,000 on behalf of Onondaga, Cortland, Madison, BOCES. The ability to create a BOCES, or Board of Cooperative Education Services, was established in 1948 and was designed to enable school districts to combine their resources, provide services that otherwise would have been uneconomical, inefficient, or unavailable. OCM BOCES was also established in 1948 and provides shared services to 23 component school districts which together serve approximately 60,000 students in Onondaga, Portland, and Madison counties. OCM BOCES provides programs at 4 campuses, 2 in Liverpool, 1 in Syracuse, and another in Portland. DASNY has issued 1 prior series of bonds on behalf of OCM BOCES. As of September 30th, 2019, approximately $5.4 million of these Series 2015 bonds remain outstanding. BOCES are funded by payments made to them by the component school districts based on their eligible share of program services and administrative and facilities expenses. The component school districts pay for these expenses through real property tax levies. In addition, the state has made appropriations to the BOCES program each year since 1949 to partially offset these expenses. The amount of state aid apportioned to OCM BOCES is available to be applied to pay DASNY rentals or debt service. On November 20th, 2019, voters approved $12,850,000 in financing for the purchase of its Crown Road campus in Liverpool. The building being purchased is currently being leased by OCM BOCES, and they are the original tenant. The building was built in 1987. Purchase is estimated to save the component district approximately $2.2 million over the next 20 years. The bonds are expected to be rated AA2 by Moody's, and they will be secured by annual rental payments to be made pursuant to a lease agreement with OCM BOCES. The direct intercept through the state comptroller of any state aid due to OCM BOCES for rental payments on the DASNY lease agreement. A pledge of public funds apportioned by the state due to OCM BOCES in an amount sufficient to pay such rental payments, subordinate to pledges granted in connection with the Series 2015 outstanding DASNY OCM BOCES bonds. There will also be a 1/2-year debt service reserve fund or reserve fund facility, and bond insurance may be considered depending on economic efficiency, although at this time it is not expected. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Steve. Questions for Steve? Yes, Brian?
Actually, not a question, more of just a statement. I know in general, the BOCES have a more difficult time securing facilities than school districts do, just for a variety of policy reasons. But this building at OCM, I'm glad to see that they've secured this more long-term. I've actually used it a few times for regional meetings hosted by SED, and it's a nice facility. It's right off the thruway. It's
Okay.
really great access. So I'm glad to see that they're going to be there long-term.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
It's also, in my view, relevant to know that they had a right of first refusal on this building, so someone else had bid a price on this building, so that in effect is a quasi-appraisal of the building.
Agreed.
It's a
As
30-some-odd
we
year old
learned in the
building.
Finance Committee
Yeah,
meeting.
well, that's
yesterday.
why I just mentioned.
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Jim. Are there questions then for Steve? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the transaction? Brian, thank you. Is there a second? John Johnson, thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. I think the motion carries unanimously. Steve, thank you.
Thank you.
We're now going to move into another part of the meeting, an executive session. And I'll ask for a motion to do that. May I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss the financial and credit history of particular corporations, proposed pending or current litigation, and the employment history of particular persons or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of particular persons. Joan, thank you. Is there a second? Tracy, thank you. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We are in executive session. The record will reflect that the board has just left an executive session during which no decisions were made other than to return to the public session. We're going to go directly now into the Audit Committee report. Chairman Gardner is on the phone, but has consented to give the report nonetheless.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Audit Committee met yesterday. We reviewed with Kathy the status of the internal audit. We also discussed the matter of re-engaging KPMG. The committee approved the re-engagement of KPMG for a year with options to extend that re-engagement for up to another 2 years. And the committee recommends approval of that re-engagement to the board today. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, John. Are there questions for John on the record? And Kim, might you pick up from there? And
Ms. Al, is a summary to the background on the proposed auditor procurement. In August, DASNY issued an RFP for its audit services, and that was after we had completed 5 years of audits under the prior contract with KPMG. The selection committee was a cross-functional team. We had 9 members with various representatives from finance, as well as procurement and internal audit. 2 proposals were received and reviewed by the committee. The committee members reviewed the proposals, rated them primarily based on the experience of the firm and the proposed staff, the audit plan, the commitment to diversity, and also took into account the proposed fees. Based on their review, the committee recommended KPMG be awarded the contract, and that was based on the strength of the proposed team, their extensive and demonstrated experience with public entities, a comprehensive audit plan that was specific to DASNY, a demonstrated firm commitment to diversity, and what the committee felt to be fair and reasonable fee proposals. The committee's recommendation does provide for DASNY's approval of any subcontractors, and it's for a maximum of 5 years associated with the audits of 2020 through 2024. It provides for annual renewals, and that is at the board's discretion and subject to a continuing determination by DASNY's procurement division that KPMG and any subcontractors are deemed responsible. That's all I have, Val, unless there are any questions.
are there questions for Kim or for John, for that matter? Sir.
Just to add one thing for the record is that in addition to the procurement process just described by Kim, DASNY's review process included a very thorough review of all vendor responsibility related information as required by DASNY's existing internal procedures, as well as Executive Law 192 and other applicable law. This review included, but was not limited to, a review of all of the additional information disclosed by KPMG in its procurement proposal concerning KPMG itself, as well as its subcontractor, separate matter involving its subcontractor, Watson Rice. Based upon the comprehensive review conducted, staff concluded that KPMG could be found responsible, subject to KPMG and its subcontractors, if any, remaining responsible throughout the term of this contract as detailed in the resolution before the board. Staff will monitor for continuing responsibility, as it does on any other contract here at DASNY, in accordance with applicable law and this resolution. Finally, as noted in the resolution, the DASNY bylaws provide at section 4.4 that a contract for the retention of independent auditors is a determination requiring formal approval of DASNY board. That's what we're here to discuss today. I and my staff have reviewed the proposed resolution and recommend its adoption, subject to any comments the board may have. Thank you.
It's important to remember what Mike has just said, that this board has the responsibility of appointing categories of professionals, including the authorities, accountants, and auditors. It's an important responsibility, and this resolution has been written with that responsibility in mind. That I don't have any more comments on that, but if there are questions for anybody who has just commented, please don't hesitate to ask. Okay.
Oh, I think it's a reasonable answer. I think the board has been totally responsive to all of the circumstances that came up in this procurement.
Terrific. Thank you very much, John. There being no further questions or comments, you've all had a chance to review the resolution. It's in your book. It is very comprehensive. May I have a motion, please, to approve? Joan, thank you very much. Is there a second? Bill, thank you. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries unanimously, and the decision, we've just made the decision with regard to the reappointment. Thank you all very much. We're now going to go into the management reports, beginning with, appropriately, the report of the executive director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that.
First report of the executive director.
I will take some executive privilege today and go a little longer than normal, but I promise that going forward, I will not spend a lot of time talking. There is a report behind tab 11 that Paul can answer any questions you have, but I will not read that report, and in the future, I will not read reports. First, I want to say thank you to the governor and to the board for my appointment. I'm very excited about being here. I have been in the public finance bond business for 30 some odd years. I have followed DASNY as a client and target for probably the past 15 years. I've had a chance to meet the staff on the bond side, work with them diligently, and so it's just a pleasure to be on this side of the table. And the great work that DASNY does is something I'm very excited about being part of. Mr. Chairman talked about the fellow program. About 3 years ago, Portia, Gerard, and a group of 13 senior managers sat in this room on a roundtable discussion about diversity. And one of the things that came out of that was the fellows program.
Wow.
I didn't know that. To give you some context, there are probably 100 or so minorities in the public finance business nationwide. And, DASNY can be proud of added 4 to that group. So I think that's, a very significant component of what we've done as an organization, and not to be minimized.
Absolutely.
And I will make sure that these 2 fellows, as well as the prior 2 and the next 2, get treated well in the industry and become very productive. Over the past week and a half, prior to being formally appointed, I've had the opportunity to spend some time with the chairman. I've had the opportunity to fill out some paperwork. I've had the opportunity to view the staff. And I just want to make a few observations as we get started, and also give you some context as how I'd like to work with the board, and how available I'd be to you, and then we can get into the detail of the report. As a practical matter, I've been very impressed with everybody I've met from a staff perspective. You sort of expect that when you first see somebody and spend some time with them, but we've had a chance to also dig in a bit to leadership meetings. I met with Steve and his crew on their Monday morning meeting, or Friday morning meeting, I guess it is. I also went over to the FIT procurement meeting, just had a good chance to interact, and been very impressed from a staff perspective. And I feel like I'm walking into an institution where staff-wise, we're doing very well. I have observed that we have an aging staff, and so as an organization, we'll have to address that going forward. How do we recruit and retain and bring on good folks? And so we've already begun sprinkling out some thoughts and ideas around that. And I think that as we move from a big picture perspective, that's going to be something we have to address as an organization, that we continue to maintain this high level of staff. I also have been inundated with the construction side and the grant side and the client side of the business in a way that I have not been before. And so I'll be spending some good time getting up to speed on that. I recognize that we are a client-driven organization, and that our clients have choices to they use. I've spent 25 of the past 30 years calling on clients, and certainly see one of my roles as being in front of our clients, making sure that they're getting the proper service and organization, and if we can be more efficient and more effective, I want to make sure that we are doing that to the extent that we can. And so I'm very interested in that. I also recognize that while we are fee-driven, those fees come from the public, and so we're very, we need to be responsible with those dollars, and we'll certainly be mindful of how we spend our resources and how we allocate them to try to really push the envelope on what DASNY does from a purpose perspective, and doesn't have wasteful allocations of resources. So I'm very attuned to that. From an interaction with the board perspective, I know that as board meetings come and there's a lot of information, you all are used to and welcome to talk to staff about specific questions. I certainly encourage that going forward. I have let my executive leadership team know that if they see something that should boil up to me, to be sure and boil that up to me. But I do intend on the next 45 to 60 days to sit down with each of you one-on-one and get some insights from you, learn from your experiences on the board, that, figure out how we can work together. And to the extent you have broad issue conversations that you want to have with me, my door is open, my phone is ready to receive it, and we should have those conversations. I want to be very accessible to you. And as I've mentioned to everyone I've met along the way, I am a week and a half in. So if there are things I'm doing that people think I shouldn't be doing, or things I'm not doing that people think I should be doing, no pride of authorship, I've asked my staff to bring those to my attention. We certainly would ask you to do that as well from a board perspective. It's very important to me that we have a good, positive working relationship, and recognizing that we have a lot of constituents that we serve. Some of them are formal client constituents, some of them are less formal, but important nonetheless. We have a lot of programs that go on from the construction side, the grant side, the bond side, and each of those constituents believes their grant is the most important grant, and we will try to make sure that the clients feel that they are important to us as well, and be as efficient, as effective as we can going forward. My hope is that in January, I'll be able to bring to you 3 or 4 larger picture items I want to work on and see as places where I think we can make some improvements and changes. Clearly, I'm too early to have any assessment of that at this point. I also will try to be as efficient, as effective in our board meetings and our preparation, so that all of you have all the information you need to make the decisions. Those of you who have read my resume know I spent 4 years on the Atlanta School Board, so I've sat on your side of the table and know that effective communication and information really makes your job much easier. We recognize you're not being compensated outside of the ability to come to New York from time to time, and so we respect your time and energy, and we'll certainly be mindful of that as well. But if there are process improvements that you see that you want to bring to our attention, please do. I don't want to act like this because we did it yesterday. We should do it this way tomorrow. So I'm very open to to those things and those interactions. Our January 8th board meeting will probably be fairly heavy, intense. I know Portia has several things she'll be bringing to the table. We've got a lot of stuff on the construction front, and a short window between now and then, given the holiday season. So we'll try the best we can to get you information as early as possible, so that you can adjust your schedule to review it. But again, I just know that holiday season is always a little tricky because the month becomes a week and a half, 2 weeks. And so we'll certainly be mindful of that. I will be attending the holiday gatherings of the institution, and certainly to the extent that any of you want to come by, it's always great to see the staff and see faces. We'll be in Albany on Tuesday, I believe at 2 o'clock, and here on Thursday of next week at 2 o'clock as well. I think that's right. Somebody here knows that 2 o'clock as well.
Might somebody make sure that the members know that? I mean, email?
I'll make sure we get emailed out. But yeah, if I want to stop by and say hello, we would certainly appreciate that. As far as business goes, one item we want to talk about today specifically, and I'm about to turn over to Paul, but most of you know, all of you know, that we are relocating from the New York office down to 28 Liberty. Just having been through a New York move in my professional career, I know that that's stressful generally. Our goal is to be in that building by October 1st at the latest. Hopefully we can do it a little before that. We are beginning our process of communicating with the members of staff here so that we can do things like get organized, get cleaned up, get papers transferred and all those things, but we recognize it will be disruptive. And so we'll do the best we can with that. I'll turn over to Paul for some details on the lease, and then we can.
Sure. So just very briefly, just to refresh everyone's memory, at the July 17th board meeting, the board approved a resolution that, subject to the terms of the resolution, authorized the president or another staff officer designated by the president to negotiate and execute a lease for approximately 38,000 square feet in Manhattan. Happy to report, as Ruben has just reported, that we have successfully negotiated the lease for the 55th floor at 28 Liberty. The lease is with Summit Glory LLC, which is an affiliate of the Fosun Group. Our staff are currently working with the landlord's design and construction team to complete the design and fit out of the space. As Ruben mentioned, our goal is to occupy on or before October 1st of 2020, and certainly we'll keep the board apprised as we complete the fit out process, including any progress photos and layout designs and so forth as we go forward. I do want to take the opportunity to thank Board Member Romsky especially, who headed up the Real Estate Committee for all his efforts, taking the time to go through, look at these sites, taking your spare time, so to speak, and really go through that process and help guide us in securing this great new space for DASNY that will occupy for many years to come. It's a beautiful space, and I think all the staff will be very pleased with it.
Yes.
I also, just from an internal perspective, want to thank Mike Cusack and his legal team, especially Fred W. Clark, who spent a lot of time working through, literally it was hundreds of pages of lease details. Really a tremendous job helping us get to the finish line at the end and really negotiate a great deal for us at the end.
The other committee members,
Yep.
obviously the chair, Al, and
Yep.
our former colleague, Paul, both who were instrumental in getting this thing to the finish line as well. So thank you.
You simply followed your lead, sir. You followed your lead.
And we look forward to our first drink at the bar there on
Thank you, Paul. And again, we're very excited about the move, and we do understand the stress of moving, but the ultimate goal and end goal, this will be an excellent place for DASNY to work out of the New York office to mirror what we have up in Albany. So with that, again, I'm appreciative of every one of you. I respect your time and energy and the work that it takes to be an effective board member and want to be here to service and make sure that we can do that as effectively as possible and really take DASNY to the next level that is before us together. And so I look forward to that. Thank you again for your vote of support. With that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Executive Director. Well, President and Executive Director, sorry. Let me say one thing in response. Well, first of all, do you all have any questions for Ruben? One of the things I'm very proud of is that this board, this is a spectacular board. I really believe that. It gets the difference between what it means to run a business like this and what it means to govern a business like this. We are on the governance side, and this board has demonstrated clearly over the course of the past, well, my time here, and we've gotten better at it, that running DASNY is the job of the staff, which you lead, and governing DASNY is the job of the folk sitting around, the other folks sitting around this table. Feel free, they may try to influence any decision you make, of course, the leader of this organization, but feel free, if you believe that somebody on the board is unnecessarily or inappropriately or inadvertently stepping into an operations role, feel free to say that. It is a fact of life that we all care about this business. Everybody at this table cares about this business, and we're capable of getting it right. And I'm very proud to have had the opportunity to lead the governance side of that effort. Talk to us. We want to talk to you.
Well, I appreciate it. We certainly will have open communication and make those things work.
Terrific.
And then maybe I'll be respectful in my
pushback.
My pushback.
Okay.
But,
that's fine.
But I appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll deflect it, but
Okay. Next on the agenda is the report of the Office of Public Finance and Portfolio Monitoring. Before you start, Portia, let me say that Larry Volk is missed at this table. He would be, how's he doing?
He's doing well.
Okay, all right. That's all I have, please.
he thinks about the Brooklyn computer software often, I'm sure, at night.
What a night, that's a nightmare.
Seamless transition.
Behind tab 12 are the standard public finance reports. Since the last board meeting, we've created 3 transactions, Federal Airport, St. Mary's Hospital for Children, Rockefeller University, and student dorms. Very brief market update. Total industry supply is currently about $397 billion year to date. It's almost 21% higher than it was same time last year. The calendar for this week is expected to be heavy at about $13 billion. U.S. Treasuries are mixed as the 10-year Treasury rate increased by 2 basis points, 30-year Treasury decreased by 1 basis point from the previous day. On the MMD side, top-rated municipal bonds strengthened from the previous day, with both 10 and 30-year MMDs decreasing by 1 basis point. As to supply overall and inflows,
Municipal bonds have reported inflows of $615 million for the week ending December 4th. And bond funds have now reported 48 consecutive weeks of inflows. I mean, we've talked about that through the year, but it really just has been tremendous. 1, 10, and 30-year MMD since the last board meeting has decreased by 6, 15, and 18 points respectively. You know, it's been and continues to be really a good time to be in the market. You know, and I think, you know, we've seen that here in terms of the number of the transactions that are being brought before us. You know, obviously with the new money transactions, we continue to see a number of refunding transactions, current and taxable advance, as well as some forward tax exempt structures as well. So again, it continues to be a good time to be in the market. Last, you know, we continue our efforts to streamline and make our processes more efficient and client-focused, and we will continue to keep you updated on our efforts as we continue our outreach to clients and our financing partners. And that concludes.
Thank you, Portia. Other questions? Portia?
It's a hell of a rate for St. Mary's.
Right, that was tremendous. And I have to say, you know, I think everybody who worked on that transaction felt really good about the transaction. St. Mary's was the first private placement that we ever did here at the authority.
Wow.
And, you know, I think we spent a lot of time talking about the mission of St. Mary's just because of the work that they do, which is really just so very important. And when the things came in for the funding, and you know, when it was clear the rate that the purchaser was talking about, I mean, I think everybody felt a tremendous amount of real pride in working on the transaction and being able to help that institution. You know, the president that we deal with there, you know, has been, you know, really very supportive of the work that we do on the financing side, and he's been very complimentary of us, and he's been just a pleasure to work with. And I know, you know, Tracy, is a very important institution from your point of view.
Absolutely, and given the population it serves, it's also a savings to the state.
Yep.
So it was a shared savings opportunity, so it was just a win-win all around.
Was that a taxable or a tax exempt offering?
Other questions or comments, Portia? There being none, we'll go to the construction project report. Steve?
Thank you. Behind tab 13 are the 3 standard construction division work reports. On the cover of the October 2019 construction project report are photos of the Central New York PC emergency generator replacement project. The scope of the project consisted of a new 13,000 square foot service building housing 2 new standby generators, 2 above ground fuel oil storage tanks, 2 day tanks, electrical switchgear, and a load bank. The project also included removal and replacement of electrical switchgear in building 39. Project budget was $10.3 million. The design start was May of 15. Design completed in November of 16. The design consultant was Dewberry Engineers. Construction started in December of 17, completed in August of 19, and the GC was VMJR Companies. A couple of the challenges associated with the project included the fact that there was a fair amount of sequencing, scheduling, and coordination of the electrical switchgear equipment, which moved from Building 39 to the new facility. Building 39, in the meantime, was required to operate on emergency power, while the new switchgear was installed to ensure critical fire, life safety, and security systems were all up and running. That work was divided into 4 phases of 8 to 12 hours each, with the emergency generators powering Building 39, and it was closely coordinated with OMH's facility safety department. Got a couple of additional photos if anyone's interested. On page 3 of the construction projects report are 3 additional new projects to the construction division project portfolio, including the Hudson Valley DDSO mechanical upgrade project for $6.5 million, Tower Sealer project at UAlbany at $5.8 million, and at the College of Staten Island, a site work project for $5.4 million, totaling $17.7 million in new projects. On page 11 is the schedule of construction expenditures through October of 2019. Prior year-to-date activity was $426 million. Current year-to-date activity is $454 million. That's an increase of about $28 million year over year. A couple of project and program updates. I'll start with SUNY. The U Albany Wellness Center is very close to substantial completion. We anticipate a TAO within the next couple of weeks. We're into finishes, punch list, and commissioning. That facility will be ready and online for the students when they return for the spring semester. At SUNY Plattsburgh, Kent Hall, this building is well underway. It's a full gut renovation and construction with all trades fully engaged at this point. Building enclosure is underway with permanent and temporary protection installed to allow for interior finish work to progress through the winter months. That project is scheduled to complete in August of 2020. Alfred Mackenzie Hall, Phase 2B, is moving towards substantial completion. With occupancy in time for the spring 2020 semester projected. Again, finish work, punch list, and commissioning tasks are all progressing. At SUNY Poly, the new residence hall, design build, is well underway. The building enclosure tasks, including the application of roofing material and window installation, as well as temporary enclosure measures, are all continuing. The project has picked up a fair amount of momentum. We are on track for a July/August 2020 substantial completion date to that project. At SUNY Cortland, 2 towers are about to undergo renovation. Phase 1 is set to kick off next week following the students' exit for winter break. The 8-month project is slated to complete in August 2020, consists of a renovation of the Casey Tower. The Smith Tower will follow a similar schedule. It will start in December of 2020 and complete in August of 21. Oswego, Fennell Hall, that project is also kicking off next week. This is a fairly significant rehabilitation of a 400-bed dorm on the Oswego campus. We will begin with abatement and demolition tasks. There's a lot of work to do in a short time. That project is anticipated to complete in August of 2020. And lastly, I mentioned the FIT project during the executive session. This project, we are bidding package 1, which is foundation work, on Friday, this Friday the 13th. We did conduct an informational meeting for the bidding community on this past Monday. Bid package 2, which is the balance of the building structure, will be advertised for bid in January. South Beach Psych Center, we conducted an executive meeting with OMH, our CM, and our architect yesterday in Staten Island. Progress continues on the $280 million project with contract work progressing mostly on the first floor and punch list and commissioning activities on floors 2 through 5. A TAO and occupancy dates are going to be Q1 of 2020. On the NYCHA side, as I noted last month, the security initiative set of projects is complete. The appliance purchase and installation initiative is nearing completion, and the quality of life portfolio consists of 21 projects that are complete at this time, 26 projects in procurement or construction, and we anticipate the $100 million program should complete in 2020. As far as GOZER goes, we've picked up some momentum. Projects are moving in to construction at this point in time from design, working toward the September 2022 completion date for the program. And just quickly on Javits and Moynihan, these are both permitting projects for DASNY. Both projects continue to progress with a very heavy workforce. All disciplines are progressing toward a Q4 2020 or Q1 2021 substantial completion date. We are also working on permitting arrangements for proposed Moynihan Station tenants, which DASNY will be undertaking as well. And of note, we just got word from OPWDD of their 2021 Community Minor Maintenance Program. We were made aware that additional projects under that program are coming to DASNY. The portfolio will consist of over 85 projects with a total project value of about $10 million. couple of other quick things on the New York City PLA. We continue our discussions with the New York City BCTC regarding DASNY's new construction and renovation PLAs. We last met with the group on November 26th. We delivered a draft version of our proposed negotiation points on December 6th. Our proposal was to be undertaken by the New York City BCTC Board of Directors today at their meeting. On the contract manager replacement system side, on November 18th through the 20th, the implementation group, HKA, kicked off the formal implementation process for DASNY for our recently acquired new project management system, PM Web. Following on implementation activities, we had a couple of sprints associated with the life of a project. The project kickoff sprint was held a couple of weeks ago, and a few follow-on sprints are underway today. Implementation is expected to continue for 9 to 12 months to get that system up and running. And just a couple of personnel changes at our customer agencies to make note of. DASNY's completed and continues to contract for a number of mid-level and major construction projects with our mental hygiene partner, OMH. Ed Colleen, who was our main contact there, has announced he will be retiring in January. Ed was certainly an advocate for DASNY, a great partner. We will miss him. Marshall Vitale has been working with Ed and will be taking Ed's position in January. And at CUNY, our main contact, former Vice Chancellor of Facilities, Judy Bertram, retired her position in November. CUNY has announced that Alan Liu replaced Judy and began his tenure this past Monday. We look forward to meeting the new Vice Chancellor and continuing our close relationship with CUNY and their campus contact. That concludes my report. If there are any questions, I'll take those.
Questions for Steve? Steve, thank you. Very comprehensive. Very. We will move now to the General Counsel's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One item for consideration and 2 administrative updates today. At the request of Governance Committee Chair John Johnson at last month's meeting, we've compiled a short summary of the recommended changes to the procurement contract policy and procurement contract guidelines, and a proposed resolution adopting those changes is included in the package. Very high level, the changes fall into 3 general categories. The first category are changes to our documentation as a result of changes that have taken place legislatively recently in the opportunities programs area, including both Article 15A, MWBE, and Article 17A, which is service disabled veteran-owned business enterprises. The second category deals with updating our existing continuing integrity provisions, which we've talked about elsewhere in the meeting, to also incorporate this year's Executive Order 192 issued on January 15th, 2019, and address some administrative cleanup in making everything work together. The third category of changes would be the administrative and other general updates that are described in the memorandum. So we have reviewed all of this information, Governance Committee as well, and has Governance Committee has recommended adoption of these changes to the full board, and we support that as well at the Council's office level. Thank you.
Questions for Mike? All right, then we will move to the
We got to do the resolution.
The resolution, of
and
course.
two other updates.
I'm sorry, forgive me.
Johnson.
I'll move
I
the
do
resolution.
that. I do that at every meeting, I think.
Only at the end.
Right, only that's it. That's right. John?
I'll move the resolution.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. The resolution passes unanimously. Thank you, John. Now, we'll move to Kimberly's report.
And the last 2 items that are in my packet, both administrative.
Let's try it out. No. We'll wait. We'll wait for Kimberly's report.
These are easy. The first item is the board review action chart, which we issue every December. And for new board members, these are the oversight compliance obligations that the board has pursuant to statute, and roughly speaking, the calendar on which we will address these items. So it lays out our work, and it serves as a checklist for management. Second attachment is the 2020 DASNY board meeting, which has been circulated. Thank you to those who have responded. And we did want to highlight one calendar timing issue, which Portia will describe between the November and the December meeting.
Right. So generally speaking, our meetings are once a month. If you look at the October to November meeting, that's actually a 5-week time period, and November to December is a 3-week time period. The reason for that is because November 11th, 4 weeks, is Veterans Day. We looked at pushing the December meeting back by a week, but if you do, that gets into the 16th, which gets sort of very close to the holidays. So we presented it in this fashion, but also wanted to talk to the board whether you had any thoughts about potentially having a board meeting not on a Wednesday. So November 11th, which would be the 4-week mark in between the two meetings, is Wednesday. It's Veterans Day. There is a possibility perhaps of having the meeting on Tuesday the 10th, which would give us sort of the 4-week time period between meetings. So we wanted to highlight that and see whether there were any general thoughts on the part of the members on that topic.
I'm sorry, Portia, again, the potential, the non-Wednesday meeting date.
Is it Tuesday, November 10th, the day before Veterans? We just didn't know, if that posed issues for folks or if people had strong feelings one way or the other. It's just a 3-week period between meetings is very, very short.
Agreed. And that meeting would be in New York City. Okay. Do the members have any strong feelings about that? I mean, it's the day before the holiday. I'm certainly okay with it, Portia. Jerry?
Okay. All right with
John?
Mr. Chairman, just as an observation, does it make sense to have the committee meetings that same day, just so that from a
Makes sense.
board, from a commitment perspective, it's all on that same Tuesday?
It would. There is some thought, Mr. President, that there sometimes isn't enough time to have the committee meetings and go through all of the substantive matters that the committees have to consider. But if staff believes that it can present to the committees and the committee members believe that it'll be an easy run for them, then we can, of
I
course.
totally respect that generally. I was just
Yeah,
thinking that,
yeah.
from a convenience perspective, given that people on the
Yeah,
board
no, I
typically
agree,
are
I
thinking
agree.
Tuesday, Wednesday. And we as a staff, it's hard to project what's going to happen in November 2020, but we as a staff can be sensitive around that time to make those committee meetings as concise
Sure.
as possible.
Well, let's try it. And I mean,
As long as you don't
think
have-
it through. And
Depending on how many you have.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the key to it. How many, if you have a governance committee, an audit committee, and a finance committee meeting.
Then it's not
probably
gonna
Wait
work.
until you do
time.
that like a couple of weeks before you figure out if there's, for that day, like November.
But if staff can work it out such that, well, we have 2 meetings rather than 3, and that the substantive matters in those meetings can be managed by sending information ahead of time, and then having staff reach out to the members if there are perceived difficulties with the substantive material. If you all are willing to do that, then the Tuesday meeting makes sense. We can do it all Tuesday morning.
We'll try that
For that
again.
day, you mean? For that
that day.
November?
Yes.
Yeah, right. But like you don't really know what you're going to have up until.
Right, we get closer, we
But
can make
as they get
adjustments.
closer, they can literally figure all of that out and stay in touch with us.
And the board meeting doesn't have to begin at 9:30. It could be at 10.
It could.
I mean, depending on how much you had to do before.
Thought never crossed my mind. No, of
For
course.
that day.
For that day.
Yeah. So you all are open-minded about this? If it can be worked out easily, then we'll do it on Portia's suggestion. All right, done.
the 10th of November.
Yes, the 10th of November, 2020.
We'll send everyone a revised schedule. Thank you. That concludes my report.
You sure?
I'm serious. I really mean it this time. Never usually have.
I'm going to try this again. Kimberly, if you, are you going to stand on your report, or do you have additions?
For the monthly financial report
Yes.
and the quarterly treasurer's report,
Yes.
I have nothing to add. I'm open for any questions that the members may have. For the mid-year projection, I do want to just briefly go through the memo that was provided to the board members. You saw in your materials, we do have our annual mid-year projection for the current fiscal year. As I noted in the memo, the projected results have improved from the approved budget by approximately $1.5 million, and that was driven by three primary areas. We have had an increase over the approved budget in the level of revenues on the private financing side. We have seen an increase in our interest income. And as we have experienced in the last couple of years, we do have impacts from our post-retirement benefits other than pensions. That's primarily healthcare. That is driven by the level of effort that our employees work towards supporting our public clients as opposed to the private clients. We have a $164 million liability for our post-retirement benefits, so even a 1% change is a fairly sizable shift. We look at our payroll dollars in order to allocate those costs. As a result of that, we do try to minimize any volatility there. So we look at a 5-year rolling average. And the last several years, we have had an increasing amount of work shifting to the public programs. That trend has continued this year, so the level of support is higher than what we put in the budget, and that is furthering the allocation of those costs over to the public side of the business, and that is flowing through to the bottom line for the privates, since we don't have any incremental fees when the allocation shifts towards the private side. Are there any questions on the mid-year projection? That concludes my report then.
Thank you, Kim. Is there any other business to come before this board? Our next meeting is in Albany on the 8th of January. I look forward to seeing you all there. In the meantime, happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, and if you're a celebrant, I am, Merry Christmas. May I have a motion, please, to adjourn? Thank you very much, Joan. Is there a second? Thank you, Beryl. We are adjourned.